Do you ever wonder what you should be doing? What the purpose of life is? In the game of chess, there's a terrifying reality. Thanks to advancements in computer learning, it's now always possible to know what the best available move is. This means that when a piece is moved, you've either chosen the best move or something inferior, and every turn carries with it the same daunting offer, a chance to make the right decision or to make a mistake. What makes this principle terrifying is that it extends beyond the borders of the chessboard. In any event where you make a choice, there is, if you knew all the possibilities and outcomes, a best possible option. But even in chess, a game with limited options, the number of possibilities is staggering. After both players move, 400 possible board arrangements exist. After the second pair of turns, there are 197,000 possibilities, and after 3 moves, over 121 million unique combinations. The total number of possible chess game configurations, called the Shannon number, named after mathematician Claude Shannon who theorized it, is 10 to the 120th power, a number so large that it is thought to outnumber the amount of atoms in the universe. But chess, despite its complex nature, pales in comparison to the intricacies of life. Each day, we are faced with thousands of options, each with unique outcomes. The total possible futures we have in a day is unmeasurable, and with so many options to choose from, making any choice at all can seem an overwhelming task. Psychologists call the stress we feel when faced with too many choices decision fatigue. Decision fatigue causes us to make mistakes and impairs self-regulation, which is why tossing a candy bar in your cart at the register is so easy to do. Your ability to make rational choices has been depleted by all the other choices you had to make while in the store. Our minds are hardwired for efficiency, which is why we don't like it when we have too many options. They end up becoming a burden, not an asset. And because of our preference for simplicity, we become creatures of habit. We make plans and routines, we follow a weekly rhythm of work and rest, we find comfort and safety in the controlled lives we construct for ourselves. And back in the beginning of 2020, most of us were comfortable with our routines. But suddenly, everything stopped.
China has identified the cause of the mysterious pneumonia outbreak in Wuhan City.
Breaking news tonight, the urgent sickness warning at major U.S. airports. The CDC announcing immediate screenings.
Now to growing concerns about the deadly coronavirus officially hitting the U.S. Here's what we know.
Now, there are fears that the coronavirus outbreak could become a pandemic.
The COVID-19 pandemic was, and continues to be, a tragedy that can't be accurately summarized with any amount of words. The pain and loss will forever shape our culture. One of the largest shaping elements of the pandemic was how we collectively reacted to the abrupt change that it necessitated. Streets emptied, events canceled, life slowed. For many of us, 2020 was a time to reassess our priorities, as old commitments dissolved and obligations faded. It created an inflection point where we got to reevaluate what we really wanted to be doing and who we wanted to be doing it with. And as businesses reopened and life began to regain some sense of normalcy, many found themselves asking, do I want to go back to my old life? In what has become known as the Great Resignation, many have answered no. Each month, millions of Americans are quitting their jobs, demanding better pay, better working conditions, and increased flexibility. The dread felt on the eve of a new work week is so prolific it has its own moniker, the Sunday Scaries. This anxiety is caused by a disconnect between our definition of purposeful work and our plans for the new week. But as many of us have felt, finding an answer to the question of purpose before the new week begins is nearly impossible, and so we often avoid it, preferring instead to numb out, looking forward to the next weekend. But if we were to give it the time, what would we want our work to look like? The most popularly accepted answer to this question is that the purpose of life is to be successful. But what is success? In 2001, a business analyst, Jim Collins, published a book called Good to Great. In it, he details his findings of what differentiates successful companies from unsuccessful ones. One of the major distinguishing factors he found was that companies which succeeded in the long run had mastered an idea which he called the HEDGEHOG concept. The HEDGEHOG concept, originally coined by British philosopher Isaiah Berlin, outlines how being good at one thing, being a spiked, nearly impossible to eat creature, takes precedence over being good at many things, as the fox, in all his crafty and innovative behavior, cannot eat the hedgehog, for it has mastered one crucial skill. Collins found that successful companies had mastered a unique set of skills. They were passionate about their offering, Their offering drove their economic machine, and they were the best in the world at delivering on that offering. They, like the hedgehog, mastered one important thing. But Collins' book, meant to inform business leaders and entrepreneurs, struck a nerve with the greater populace. The book quickly transcended its category and became the best-selling book of 2002. But why did Good to Great become so popular? What did it have to offer people outside of the business world? The answer lies in its detailed description of how to become successful. The book, originally a study on business success, evolved as it grew beyond its intended audience to become a trusted method for personal success, a surrogate of sorts. And many young people took to heart the triune idea outlined in the book and began demanding that their work was something they were passionate about, in addition to something they were good at and that paid well. And while this ideology was a great step forward from the be a wage slave to the same conglomerate your whole life mentality, it still missed the mark. The problem was that, in conflating the formula for personal success with that for business success, something important was left out. The trio outlined in the hedgehog concept is a self-perpetuating cycle. It says, become the best in the world at what you're passionate about so you can make money. Then take that money and invest it so you can continue to be the best in the world. And remain the best in the world so you can do what you're passionate about, and so on. At face value, this doesn't seem like a problem. Who wouldn't want to get rich doing something they love? But in simplifying the result to a binary option, we blunder into a trap that has wasted many well-intentioned lives. The trouble with this definition of success is that it offers no finish line, no higher purpose outside of itself to attain to, only a quest for more. When we try to define the three objectives that the hedgehog concept urges us towards, riches, passion, and superiority, we only find a mirage, an illusion of an answer, which is in fact a lie that what we want is just up ahead. And so it turns out the hedgehog concept only works as a recipe for business success, but doesn't actually provide us an answer to the question of how to live a meaningful life. Instead, it acts as an on-ramp to the hedonistic treadmill, a never-ending quest for more. So, should we ditch the entire idea and restart our search for purpose? We could, although there are many good truths to the hedgehog concept. But, like an unsalted dish, it just seems to be lacking some critical component. A possible solution is the ikigai concept, or at least an interpretation of it. Ikigai is a Japanese word which translates to a reason for being. And while ikigai can represent any number of things which give life meaning, in 2011 Spanish philosopher Borja Valesca simplified it when he created this graphic, which he published in his book, What Would You Do If You Weren't Afraid? This graphic shares many similarities with the hedgehog concept, but with one exception. The difference between the ikigai and the hedgehog concept is that the hedgehog concept doesn't have the fourth circle. It ignores the needs of society. At first glance of the ikigai model, it might seem that what the world needs is just a redundancy of what you can be paid for. And this is partially true. If somebody's willing to pay for something, then presumably the world needs it, or at least wants it badly enough to pay for it. But while everything that somebody's willing to pay for is in some way what the world needs, certainly for not every need the world has is there somebody willing to pay for it. And it makes sense that Collins didn't include the fourth circle of what the world needs in his model, as he didn't set out to find what made work meaningful, but rather what made some businesses successful and others not. By focusing on successful companies and not meaningful work, he excluded types of work which fit inside the fourth circle of the ikigai, like nonprofits, B Corps, civil rights activism, and other roles which fight injustice. And interestingly, it seems that all problems which fit inside the what the world needs circle and don't fit inside the other three, thus excluding it from Collins' model, seem to involve some act of fighting injustice. And this makes sense. You can be the best in the world at nearly anything, and you can be passionate about nearly anything, which then leaves the third circle, that which drives your economic machine, to be fulfilled. And in our diverse economy, you can make money from doing nearly anything, as long as you're good at it. But there's one activity you can't make money from doing, and that's serving those in poverty. Those experiencing severe injustice have nothing to give you, and even if they did, serving them to get something from them almost always ends up being predatory. For the only way somebody can pay who has no money is through a loan, and what good is a loan that doesn't make interest? And so we're back to where we started. There's no good way to serve the poor and make a profit. So, what would a life that fulfills all four circles of the ikigai look like? Well, it would likely look like an efficient machine with a slight inefficiency designed into it. Perhaps a restaurant that offers a free meal on Thursday nights for anyone who cannot pay, or a clothing company that gives away an article of clothing for every article it sells, or a businesswoman with a commitment to give away a portion of her income. Now, an economist might point out that a financial machine which is funded by its ability to provide a product or service of higher quality than its competition will eventually be bested by its competition if it operates in an intentionally inefficient way. And generosity is, from an economic perspective, certainly inefficient. But does the story end here? Do greedy corporations and trust fund kids get the final word? Do good guys finish last? In the short term, it would seem they do. But as Martin Luther King Jr. reminds us, and as I hope to be true, he says, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." So, how does generosity win? Inside of economics is an area of study called behavioral economics. Behavioral economics seeks to understand how psychology affects economic decision-making processes, particularly in situations where the decisions made are seemingly irrational. According to a recent study by the Zeno Group, 89% of Americans are more likely to support a brand earning a profit if they also have a positive impact on the world. And youth are leading the charge, with Gen Z and millennials preferring purpose-driven brands 10% more than their Gen X counterparts. Altruism, our desire to selflessly help others, has been a mystery for as long as humans have existed. It's a central tenet to nearly every major religion and has fascinated sociologists, psychologists, and neurobiologists alike. It resides at the core of our being and is the foundation for every heroic and courageous act. And for all we don't understand about it, the good news is our collective buying behavior shows that it's increasing. So perhaps life isn't a zero-sum chess game where every move is a win or a loss. Perhaps there are good moves and there are moves that are good for others. And while the moves that help others might not seem immediately beneficial to us, they are, in fact, the key ingredient which gives life its purpose. In closing, I'll leave you with a thought passed on to us from Mr. Rogers. He says, "All of us, at some time or another, need help. Whether we're giving or receiving help, each one of us has something valuable to bring to this world. That's one of the things that connects us as neighbors. In our own way, each one of us is a giver and receiver." So, if you're feeling lost and unhappy with life, I want to encourage you to take a risk and serve somebody who has nothing to give you. In doing so, you might just find the purpose you've been looking for all along. Each month, millions of Americans are quitting their jobs in search of better pay,
working conditions.
demanding. Each month, millions of Americans are leaving their jobs, demanding better pay. I started laughing because I knew I was going to get it. Better working conditions and increased flexibility. Gosh dang it. Okay. In what has become known as the great, don't get the giggles now. Better flexibility and gosh dang it, better working conditions. In what has smiles, demanding better pay, gosh dang it, better pay, increased flexibility, and better working conditions. In what has become known as the Great Resignation, golly, can you face the other way or something?